On June 16, 1944, in the small town of Alkaloo, South Carolina, a 14-year-old boy named George Stinney Jr. was strapped into an electric chair. He was so small, just 5'1", 95 pounds, that the guards struggled to fit him into the chair built for grown men. George was convicted of killing 2 white girls in a trial that lasted barely 2 hours. 80 years later, his story still haunts the conscience of America. It was March 24, 1944. George and his little sister, Amy, were outside their home when 2 white girls, 11-year-old Betty June Binnicker and 8-year-old Mary Emma Thames, asked where they could find a certain type of flower. The children spoke briefly, then the girls went on their way. When the girls didn't return home that evening, a search party was formed. George and his family joined in, hoping to help find them. The next morning, the bodies of both girls were found in a shallow ditch, brutally beaten. Within hours, the town's attention turned toward George. The 14-year-old was taken by police, separated from his family, and interrogated alone. There was no lawyer, no parent, no witness. Authorities claimed George confessed, though no written statement was ever produced. There was no physical evidence linking him to the murders, but in 1944 South Carolina, that didn't matter. Just days after George's arrest, his father was fired from his job. The family was forced to flee Alkaloo under threats of violence. A white mob attempted to lynch George, but he had already been moved to a jail in another town. Alone, terrified, and abandoned by the system, George awaited trial. The trial began just 1 month later. George's court-appointed attorney had no experience defending capital cases. The entire trial lasted less than a day. No witnesses were called in George's defense. The prosecution's only evidence came from the sheriff, who recounted the alleged confession. An all-white jury deliberated for just 10 minutes before declaring George Stinney guilty. The sentence? Death by electric chair. On June 16, 1944, George was led into the execution chamber. Newspapers reported that the oversized mask slipped from his face when the first surge of electricity struck, revealing the tears streaming from his eyes. He was 14 years old, the youngest person executed in the United States in the 20th century. For decades, George's siblings, Amy, Catherine, and Charles, insisted that he was innocent. But it wasn't until 2004 that efforts began to clear his name. In 2013, the Stinney family's lawyers petitioned the court to overturn his conviction. Amy Ruffner, George's sister, testified, recalling that day vividly. She told the court, "No white people ever came to our side of town. Somebody followed those girls and killed them." In December 2014, 70 years after his death, Judge Carmen Mullen vacated George's conviction, writing, "I can think of no greater injustice than the violation of one's constitutional rights, which has been proven in this case." For George's family, the ruling was both a victory and a reminder of deep loss. His sister Catherine Robinson remembered, "When we got the news, I threw my hands up and said, 'Thank you, Jesus,' but then I cringe when I think of George, a child with no one to help him." 80 years later, George Stinney's story stands as a stark reminder of the racial injustice embedded in America's past and the importance of never forgetting. Remember his name. Remember his story. Justice delayed, but not denied.